Welcome back to Young Money. We're about to sit down with one of the most difficult to classify and box young ladies that I've met. Her name is Samke Ngwenya, and she's going to be telling us about her day job and the number of entrepreneurial ventures that she's heading up and how she strikes the balance of doing all these different things at the same time and slaying at each and every one of them. Samke, it's so lovely to meet you. Maybe let's start off with the banking. It, of course, is a difficult space for young black women in particular to get into that space. How did you get into banking, and how's that experience been?
Thanks, Nazipa. So I have been in banking for 7 years now. I'm with a private bank I won't name, simply because with all the things I do, the agreement with my employer is that I do them in my personal capacity. So I've been with that same bank for 7 years. I started in their UK Treasury division, very entry-level job. You know, it's a postal bank. I was checking signatures of postal instructions against what we have in the system, and I literally worked my way up. I always knew that I wanted to be in the South African banking side. So after about 6 months in the UK Treasury side, I moved to the South African banking side. I started off, again, very admin intensive role, and afterwards I moved into an external or primary relationship manager role. So my day job is basically a private banker / relationship manager.
And do you get a sense that that space is widening for other young black emerging females?
Absolutely. I think the space is definitely widening, and people don't sort of look at your demographic profile when judging you as a banker. They look more to how successful you are with the applications they put forward to you and what value you can add to them. So I found that for a long time, my own restrictions were actually self-imposed. I was thinking to myself that what can I teach someone that's grown up in wealth or has had wealth for a long time? But that just challenged me to sort of work harder at my role, to research more, to keep abreast of what's happening not only in the domestic but global economy, so that when we're having a chat with the client, we're not just chatting around, do you want a home loan or not? We're chatting around, what's the property market doing? Could your money be put to better use, for instance? Is there a better investment instrument for you? As opposed to just, you know, thanks for the application, let me take it through to credit. And that's how I grew as a banker.
And it certainly sounds like that outlook and approach, doing more, adding more value, is something that you've transplanted into your entrepreneurial space. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing there.
Okay, so basically I think a lot of these entrepreneurial ventures or side jobs or moonlighting or hustles actually came about as a result of my MBA study. So when I was doing my MBA, my thesis was on the factors contributing to over-indebtedness of black South African females. I'd always had a theory around how the previously disadvantaged are more over-indebted than the previously advantaged, if we can call them that, those people that, but basically I was just fascinated by the different behavioral patterns of the different racial groups. And so in terms of my MBA study, I researched that because the black South African female is the most likely over-indebted individual in South Africa right now and is the least financially sophisticated individual in South Africa right now. So I extended my study to media platforms because I wanted to say, how do I extend my expertise and offer my expertise to people outside the private banking space? Because I believe the most vulnerable are actually the people who are sort of your mid-tier earnings, your 500 to a million rand earnings, 500,000 to a million rand per annum. And if you can change that, and if you can ensure that those people create wealth, you would have changed not only their families, but their extended families as well. So that is basically why I got into media, which is my radio and TV appearances, and I write financial articles and contribute financial content to Destiny Connect, and I'm also a corporate speaker on finance. It started as being a speaker on finance, then translated or migrated to emceeing and motivation and this and that. So it's grown much bigger than I thought or anticipated.
Absolutely, and it's obviously indicative of the demand for what you're actually putting out to market. Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing in the speaking circuit, because I'm aware that you also pitch and position some of those speaking engagements for different audiences, including young people. What are you trying to achieve with the different segments of your market base?
So the speaking engagements, I am represented by Conference Speakers International, And how that grew to sort of different target audiences is because after each engagement, people would come to me for different things. So when I'd start on the finance and how I found myself in a financially vulnerable position, which actually sort of piqued my interest in what other black females are going through, I'd then find people saying, how did you get through that? Then it became motivational. Then when I spoke about how I created 3 different income streams for myself, i.e. the banking, the speaking, and a board member as well, people asked me, how did you grow your career? So then it became sort of coaching based. And I realized that different people take different things from me. So my peers will say, how do I sort of level up? You know, just one level. The grads will say, how do I create my brand, or how do I create longevity in an institution, because you've been in this institution for 7 years and clearly they're looking after you. Sort of senior management, I pitch to them, how do you keep or retain an employee like Samke, who's got multiple income streams, who's obviously in demand with other institutions. So it's basically pitched at the different audiences, because I believe there's different things they can take from what I've gone through and what I can put out in terms of that content.
And where does balance come into the conversation? Is it something that you focus on at all? And of course, appreciating that you probably have your own unique blend and approach to what balance means for you.
So I think for a long time, people thought that balance is sort of dividing your time or yourself equally in equal parts. I'm a mom, I'm a friend, I'm an employee, and how I achieve balance is that I need to be able to switch off. So when I'm with my children, I try and switch off external influences, and if I'm going to go out, I go out with my children. I will do things that involve my children. And another thing is actually the type of work I do, or my external activities, I really enjoy. So I was telling my grand just yesterday that live a life that you don't want to take a break from. I don't like taking leave, or I don't like stopping what I'm doing, because I enjoy it so much. And also when I'm out at engagements or speaking, I actually mingle with the client and with the audience. I'm that MC that will stay with you at the after party and dance with you, honey. You know, I'm not trying to leave as soon as my 4 hours are done. So I basically just ensure that my balance is by incorporating as much of the things that I enjoy as possible into my day, so I don't have to take a break from it. So I don't feel like I have to take a break from it.
So you've alluded to obviously a personal experience that you say you were once in a position where you were in financial need, and I think it's public knowledge that you came from a divorce. But maybe let's talk a little bit about that, because I think there are young women who are watching this show and they're looking at you and how successful you've been. But in that process, there must have been some I want to give up on life moments. Is there any insights that you can share with us and that young women can pick up from?
So trust the process and hold on to your principles. Never let go of your principles. It was very difficult for reasons I'm not going to mention, but I think the fact that I'm quite optimistic, and I was just like, there must be a reason for all of this. In fact, I journaled a lot during my divorce, and I was journaling and write silly things like, you're probably reading this from a book right now, and in my mind I'm like, wow, it's so silly, but it helped me remain positive and sort of see beyond the situation that I was currently in. And I actually am working on my book.
So it will be coming from a book soon.
It will be coming from a book soon, and I think just hold on to your principles. And I think the financial difficulty tested my principles, because it would have been so easy for me to just move on to the next relationship where someone was offering me a big house and a fancy car, and they did, let's not lie. But I had just decided for myself that this is an opportunity for me to figure myself out, because I got married so young, and I've enjoyed the journey to discovering me and who I am and what's important to me. And so right now I am still single, and I'm looking for a companion, not so much someone to be wife to, or to fill some role description they want from me. I want someone who's going to understand I have my own journey and my own path, and they're walking along that journey with me. I'm not here to make someone else's dreams come true, and vice versa. I've got what I need. Everything that I need to survive this world is within me, and I just want someone to complement that.
I think that's absolutely fantastic, and I mean, there's two interesting things that are surfacing for me as you speak. Let's start off with the first one. I mean, taking your experience into your professional space and into your entrepreneurial space in particular, what would you advise young women who are about to tie the knot? Because it doesn't always work out the way we'd like it to work out. Is there a way that you can make yourself broke-proof should you emerge out of a marriage and into a divorce situation?
Yeah. So one of my sayings is do not relinquish your financial outcome to your spouse. The power to produce and protect must always remain with you. So as much as maybe, you know, during your marital life, you may want to be a housewife or whatever the case is, make sure you're always in a position where should you need to get a job, you can. Should you need to produce income, you can. Should you need to protect yourself financially, protect your children, you can. So that's the advice I would give them. Make sure that even before going into the marriage and during the marriage, you're always in a position where you can produce your own resources, you control your own resources, you can protect yourself should you need to, you can protect your children.
And I think that links quite directly to the second interesting theme that I think is emerging, and this is around navigating cultural expectations, because controlling your own money, paying for your own way, building your own wealth and so on, somehow doesn't always fit quite snugly in the cultural expectations landscape. So what are you telling young women about how do you make this cultural thing work for you?
So by me saying be in a position where you can produce and control your own resources doesn't mean that your partner doesn't have a part to play in that. But do not be oblivious to what's going on financially in your home. Ask the right questions. You must remember that culture is born out of a specific environment to meet the needs of that environment. Culture is dynamic. So the culture of the man as the provider, the woman as the nurturer, comes from the hunter-gatherer phase, where the men would go out to hunt and get the resources necessary for the running of the household. That's not necessarily the case right now. So for instance, if you're buying a house together, why do you not have access to that bond account? We see that all too often. You don't know whether that bond is being paid or not. Just because the roof over your head is still there doesn't mean that your bond account is up to date. And too many times I have seen clients, especially the women, figure out too late that the bond hadn't been repaid, either when the house is being repossessed or there's a divorce and you think there's equity and there isn't. So understand that culture is dynamic and set your own culture for your marriage. You don't have to be dictated to what the culture should be. The culture should suit you and your needs, and the culture should never leave you financially vulnerable. If it does, then it needs to be updated.
What's next for you?
I'm just taking it all as it comes. This has all been much bigger than me, much bigger than I could have anticipated, than I could have planned. So I'm just in a phase of my life that I summarize in one word, which is allow. I'm allowing all the opportunities. I'm allowing the growth. I'm allowing the hurt. I'm allowing the joy. I'm allowing, you know, the universe to let my life unfold as it should. To me, the universe is God, but I'm just allowing any opportunity that comes along, and I'm just sort of taking that in my stride and whilst holding on to my principles and my values.
Well, there you have it. The key theme in her life right now is just to allow. Her name is Samke Ngwenya, and as you've heard for yourself, a phenomenal ball of energy who's really doing phenomenal things, not only in her professional life, but also for women and the broader audience that are consuming a lot of the media pieces she's putting out around financial health. And that's how we're closing this episode of Young Money today. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. Well, if you want the Young Money crew to come to you, all you need to do is just follow me on Twitter. It's @TheRealNozi or @CNBC Africa. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Until next time, just goodbye.